a life for herself.
She was involved with whatever it took to allow her to survive.
So when a charming older man gives her the attention she craves, she is determined to stay by his side, no matter the repercussions.
She looked at him and saw somebody as more than just a person to love. This baby was like, "Oh, I found my sugar daddy."
Things just spiraled out of control.
And later, in Fort Worth, Texas, Carter Carol Cervantes believes she finally has her work-life balance down pat.
She was considered a bright, up-and-coming star.
That is, until she meets a guy who gets her to rethink her career choices.
When she saw that fire burning, she probably knew at that point there was no turning back.
In this case, love and greed
It stands in glaring contrast to the bustling tourist mecca that is her hometown of New Orleans, Louisiana.
Jaquanda lived a childhood filled with a lot of instability. There were drugs around her, violence around her. So she grew up knowing what crime was like.
She didn't have the traditional family life, no real support, probably very little guidance in what you're supposed to do.
Life for Jaquanda only gets tougher throughout her teenage years when she forges her own path.
When Shaquanda was a sophomore, she actually dropped out of high school and she was quickly on a wrong path.
She wanted money, and if she could find someone to love her, all the better.
Shaquanda got involved with theft. She had some charges. She also got addicted to crack cocaine, and she became a prostitute.
Growing up in the streets is in an unstable environment. In fact, it becomes the norm. It becomes almost the only way to survive.
Jaquanda kind of ran a gamut of crimes. I don't know when it started, but at some point, she obviously learned how to survive in that realm.
By age 30, she has all but given up on life and love when she meets a man that changes things for her. 56-year-old Curtis Kiles.
He could absolutely be her dad and even possibly her grandfather.
Jaquanda was at a low point in her life when all of a sudden breezes in this old school hustler who knew the game, knew the life, and wanted to get to know Jaquanda too. This breathed a new life into Jaquanda.
Curtis has a past of his own, having spent 11 years on death row on a murder conviction 26 years earlier.
They then turned up evidence that the prosecution and possibly the police failed to turn over documents to the defense that might have been favorable in his trial.
His conviction was overturned, and he received a healthy financial settlement from the state. As a free man, Curtis runs his own business as a small-time crack dealer.
They were drawn to each other immediately. Most women would run from that, but she actually flocked to it.
He is absolutely the elder statesman of a bad neighborhood. He is a guy who has been through a lot.
He had plenty of money. So this baby was like, "Oh, I found my sugar daddy."
Over the next few weeks, Jaquanda and Curtis spend time together at his apartment. And while he provides her with drugs, she becomes his beck and call girl.
She was doing whatever the hustle required. She's a young girl of the streets who is living basically day to day.
So a guy promising affection, financial support, and then the overlay, drugs. Wow, so some women with a drug problem, they'll get hooked on all of that, and they'll do whatever it takes to hold on to that lifestyle.
Hey, how are you?
The ambitious Curtis is not satisfied with just selling drugs or living off his settlement. He's always on the lookout for new ways to support himself and his lady love. So on June 10th, Curtis meets up with his neighbor, 26-year-old Crystal St. Pierre, to strike up a win-win deal.
Crystal St. Pierre was down on her luck, desperate for money to pay her bills and to support her habit.
Crystal offers up her electronic benefits transfer, or EBT card, a card issued by the state to get food.
Her EBT card has about $300 on it, so she gives that to Curtis in exchange for cash.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
With the card in hand, Curtis takes his lady love to the grocery store.
They fill up their shopping cart to overflowing, going aisle by aisle, splurging on themselves and getting everything that they could possibly want.
Once they got to the register, that's when the trouble started. The clerk tells Curtis the card is declined. He tried several times to use the card again.
Can't be declined.
He was getting angry. He was embarrassed. He didn't know if the PIN was bad, if there was no funds.
Angry customers behind them, this huge conveyor that has to be not only sacked and everything, but moved out of the way. I think what they felt more Curtis than Jaquanda is a sense of embarrassment, anger, and certainly that he was insulted.
When that car was being declined over and over again, this may have led to a situation of feeling mocked and played to the point of where it added more fuel to a mounting rage.
As the line behind the couple gets longer, Jaquanda watches as Curtis gets angrier and angrier, and her man's temper flares at the realization that he may have been played by Crystal.
From his generation, women didn't do that to men. That's his mentality, and that's what he wanted. He was insulted. You have screwed me over, and he had already given over his money. So in the world of the streets, you can't allow somebody to take advantage of you like that.
While Jaquanda stands by him waiting for his next move, Curtis decides to call Crystal to see what's going on. And what happens next has him seeing red.
Crystal, you need to call me.
Curtis blows up Crystal's phone trying to get a hold of her. Her phone went straight to voicemail, which really set Curtis off.
Jaquanda has no idea what lengths Curtis will go to save face. And it will change their lives for leave the grocery store empty-handed after the benefits card given to them by Crystal St. Pierre is declined.
I think Curtis realized that he was swindled by Crystal. She really just wanted the money for drugs.
He's not just angry now, he's embarrassed. And that's a problem.
Think she gonna mess with my money?
Hell-bent on exacting revenge, the couple goes looking for Crystal, who is good friends with Curtis's former apartment manager, Brenda Parcell.
Crystal would sometimes hang out at Brenda's apartment, so that's the first place Curtis and Jaquanda went.
Curtis banged on the door. Brenda opens the door. He announces he wants Crystal. He wants her outside immediately.
I need my money.
As his former landlady, Brenda is no stranger to Curtis's temper, so she tells him to wait outside while she gets Crystal to avoid any trouble of her own.
When Crystal walked out of the apartment, that's when all hell broke loose.
Without warning, Jaquanda takes charge of the situation and shows her man what she's made of.
Jaquanda unleashed havoc on Crystal. She started beating her immediately, dragging her down the stairs by her hair, punching her in the face. It was crazy.
I think Jaquanda did it more out of loyalty to Curtis. I think she wanted to show him her worth in that type of situation.
Sometimes women can be in relationships where they're often bystanders, but sometimes when the opportunity arises, they can step up, take control, and prove themselves by any means necessary.
Merciless in her attack, Jaquanda drags the alleged swindler to the car and into the back seat.
Crystal is definitely telling them this is a mistake, that she can make it right, she can make up for it.
Brenda tries to intervene, but Curtis tells her to stand down.
Curtis turned around and pulled up his shirt and showed Brenda that he had a gun tucked into his waistband. The meaning behind that is really clear. Leave us alone to do what we want to do, or we'll kill you.
There's no way Crystal knew exactly what had happened because Curtis was so mad and so angry, he just thought he had been screwed over.
Oh, you gonna die today, bitch.
Curtis drives the car as Jaquanda stays in the back seat with her eyes trained on their captive.
Crystal tried to fight back. She tried to jump out several times, but to no avail. Jaquanda kept pulling her back into the vehicle.
As they drive, Curtis continues his verbal onslaught against Crystal, who begs to be let go.
He was in this rage about this food stamp card. At this point, Crystal is crying hysterically. She doesn't know what to do.
Mess with my money, I'ma kill you.
Curtis and Jaquanda drove Crystal to a rural section of Jefferson Parish, Avondale. They found a road that led back into woods. As soon as the road bent and you couldn't see the street anymore, right there is where they stopped.
Curtis gets out of the car, determined to get revenge.
Curtis walked to the other side of the car, opened the door, yanked her out, and threw her to the ground. She's crying hysterically. I think she knew what was coming.
Chiquanda now realizes the enormity of the situation and begins to have doubts.
I think Shaquanda was scared throughout. I think she had seen anger. I don't think she had seen it necessarily at that level. I think a certain level came out where she realized, that he's really serious.
And if she had any doubts about what her man was capable of, what he does next proves how far he's willing to go.
She had the perfect vantage point to watch Curtis put his gun at the back of Crystal's skull.
And later, in Fort Worth, Texas, Carter Carol Cervantes will find out that loving the wrong man can wreck even the most perfect life.
They heard noises, they heard a scream, the downstairs neighbor heard that awful thud.
And her boyfriend, Curtis Kiles, have kidnapped 26-year-old Crystal St. Pierre and have taken her to a secluded area in New Orleans, Louisiana, to exact revenge.
She's crying hysterically. I think at that moment, Crystal knew what was coming.
Chiquanda watches in shock as Crystal begs for her life.
She got out just in time to see Curtis shoot Crystal in the back of the head at point-blank range.
Chiquanda absolutely saw Crystal's body on the ground, twitching, and saw Crystal take her last breath, saw her die.
She was snapped back to reality when Curtis yelled at her to get back into the car. She looked back one more time, looking at what they'd left behind.
I think Shaquanda had seen Curtis be violent in the past, but not to this level. So I think at that exact moment, Shaquanda was even scared for her own safety.
When you see your partner committing cold-blooded murder, that forces you to re-examine every aspect of that relationship.
The couple get back in the car, and as they're driving out of the area, Curtis receives a phone call from his daughter, who tells him the police are looking for him, in connection with Crystal St. Pierre's abduction.
He knew he was a marked man, so he couldn't go home. Curtis hung up with his daughter. He immediately took off his shirt, wrapped the gun in the shirt, gave it to Shaquanda and said, "Throw this out of the window when we go across the bridge."
Shaquanda does as she's instructed.
She's scared to death. And they drive for a good little while until they reach their destination. And during that time, she absolutely thinks he'd still kill her.
The couple heads to Bassfield, Mississippi, about 150 miles away from the crime scene.
They ran away together and tried to avoid the police as long as they could.
Curtis, I have to get out of here.
Tensions rise, and things between the couple go from bad to worse.
He had just committed a murder. There's a lot of arguing between the two. Shaquanda wants to leave the situation because I think she was scared, but Curtis was having no part of that.
Have you lost your damn mind?
He beat her. He hit her in the eye, beat her about the head, and he let her know she wasn't going anywhere.
Beating someone into submission is not the way to keep a relationship or to keep that person under control. There's only so much they can take before they snap.
Meanwhile, back at the crime scene, the police talk to Brenda and find out why Curtis and Shaquanda took Crystal. Surveillance video from the food store only bolsters the claims.
They saw Curtis and Shaquanda at the cash register attempting to swipe the card. They also saw Curtis in the parking lot on the phone, very angry and in a rage.
Not long after, Crystal herself becomes a silent witness to her brutal murder.
Crystal's body was found just 24 hours after the murder. It was actually found by a contractor who was walking the canal and spraying weeds. He saw the body and immediately called police.
As the couple lays low, police pinpoint their location through cell records.
Chiquanda and Curtis were pretty certain that they were in the clear. After all, it had been more than a week since he'd killed anyone.
9 days after Crystal's murder, the pair is caught without incident in a tiny trailer where they're holed up in Mississippi. Once in custody, Curtis remains tight-lipped.
Curtis refused to provide any type of statement. He just said, "I'm not talking to you." I mean, I've seen people be scared, be worried, be arrogant. He was just quietly callous.
I don't talk to cops.
But Chiquanda pours her heart out.
Curtis was the person who pulled the trigger. Curtis was the driving force. And she cooperated almost immediately from when, we took her into custody.
She cuts a deal and testifies against her man at his trial.
She said Curtis was insulted and upset and people don't get to screw him over. She just went along with that.
Curtis Kiles is found guilty of second-degree murder, and he receives a life sentence. Shaquanda Forbes pleads guilty to second-degree kidnapping and receives a 15-year sentence. In an ironic twist of fate, investigators learn that Crystal did not swindle Curtis as he assumed.
Curtis entered the wrong PIN. She had the money there, she had the proper PIN and all that. Curtis is looking at the wrong number, putting in as the PIN.
In the Shaquanda Forbes trusted that her man would have her best interest at heart, but that relationship sent her to prison. Next, Carter Carol Cervantes puts her future on the line for her guy, until their dreams go up in smoke. In Fort Worth, Texas, a young Carter Carol Cervantes is known for being a serious, no-nonsense girl.
People would describe Carter as being pretty, smart, driven, and she had a plan for her life. She knew exactly where she wanted to go.
She came from a well-to-do family. Family was very close.
Her parents taught her that the key to getting somewhere is to work hard and to get an education. They definitely believed in that as a way of achieving the American dream.
After high school, Carter goes off to college in Amarillo, about 100 miles away, to pursue her bachelor's degree.
Her family was very excited that she wanted to pursue a degree and that she wanted to better herself.
While in school, Carter looks for an opportunity to make some extra money, and she lands a job with a popular retail store at the mall.
Working as a part-time employee, it fit very well with Carter. She sort of fit into the crowd. She fit well at work. She was really on the right track.
She didn't have a lot of time for socializing because she was really busy with school and work, but she loved her job and she really enjoyed making the money that she was making.
By the time Carter graduates, she has a full-time job with the retailer, and she couldn't be happier about staying in town.
She was seeing a career for herself with this store. Things were going very well for her, and she could see a pretty bright future. She was moving up the ladder.
When someone is on the right career track, well, that means that they're happy, and then things just naturally start falling into place.
By age 25, her career is her priority, and everything else takes a back seat.
Thank you so much. Have a nice
Until one day, the workaholic meets a new hire at the store, Clarence David Mallory.
David was a worker in the stockroom. Apparently, when Carter saw David, that was it. It was love at first sight, it was boom, it was chemistry, and it was on.
David made a really big impression on Carter. While she was, in the front, he was kind of in the back, and it was a little intriguing for her to see this guy working in the stockroom.
Tall and handsome, the 19-year-old seems to share Carter's feelings, and the pair quickly becomes an item. But little does she know that this love will push her to the limit when this office romance takes a deadly turn.
This is now a pretty hot scene, and they have to hightail it out of there before they're caught.
She made all the wrong choices.
David Mallory are having a full-fledged office romance.
Carter, having worked so much at the retailer, didn't really have a lot of time for love. However, meeting David at the workplace was ideal for her.
When two people are involved in an office romance, they have to choose either the romance or their work. Trying to sustain both, it's a really difficult balancing act that many people aren't able to do.
Carter can't believe her luck when she gets an assistant management offer at the Abilene location 4 hours away.
What?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my God.
Not wanting to leave her new love, she encourages the 19-year-old to put in for a transfer, and the two settle into their relationship.
So she and David decided to kind of take their relationship to the next level and go together to Abilene.
So they're both working at the same store. Carter's doing well, David's employed, they live together, their little love nest is complete, and life is good.
Carter seems to have everything a girl could ever want, a great career and a man that loves her. But they have to keep their relationship on the down low.
David is a stock boy. She's not supposed to be dating him because of her position.
Well, because Carter's now in management, it's a violation of the company's policy for her to be dating one of her employees.
It seems like Carter is on the fast track to upper management, while David's track takes him nowhere.
Carter had always had a really strong work ethic, and it was blossoming at this Abilene store and her new role there. But on the opposite side, her boyfriend, David, wasn't doing so good. He was missing work, he was unreliable.
Allegedly, David was not a good employee, and he was subsequently fired.
When a significant other loses their job, this certainly does cause major issues, even if they're not apparent right away. And usually that person, the working person, will start feeling the pressure of supporting both, and in time, that can take its toll on the relationship.
She did so well that she even got an opportunity to go to Fort Worth and be an assistant manager there.
Carter decides to take this job. This is a win for her. This is an opportunity that Carter could just not give up.
The pair packs up once again and heads to Fort Worth, where they hope to make a fresh start. But the first order of business is to get David a new job at a familiar place.
David still needed a job, and technically he couldn't work for the company anymore, so Carter came up with a plan.
One day when the general manager is out, Carter sees an opportunity to bring her boyfriend back in as an employee. She decides to change his name around. She also decides to take 2 of his Social Security numbers and change them just enough so that she could bring him on as an employee.
Completely against the company policy and completely illegal.
When someone who has done the right thing all their lives now all of a sudden crosses over to the dark side and engages in illegal and destructive behaviors, you have to ask yourself, are they doing this for love, or are they doing it for money, or are they doing it for both?
She set it all up. She set everything up for him to walk right into the job.
As David starts working at the store, Carter focuses on learning the ins and outs of the store for her new position.
Carter starts to see money come into the safe every night. She's seeing how much the store brings in sales each day, and she's noticing that it's a significant amount of money.
The more access she has, the more intrigued she becomes.
And she really is kind of startled at how much money comes in, especially on certain sale days.
There were a number of weekends that actually bring in a lot of money. So not just tax-free weekend, but holiday weekends like Black Friday. So she was privy to the knowledge that a large amount of money would come in on these big sale weekends.
Carter, being a dutiful girlfriend, tells David just about everything she is learning about her new position as assistant manager.
She is telling him, look, I know how everything runs. I know how much money is coming in, how they store the money, how the money moves out, and all of this stuff, maybe to impress him a little bit. He was definitely impressed.
We need to get this money.
The daring duo is alleged to have capitalized on the newfound information Carter is privy to.
Carter had all the access they needed to get to that money. David had the motivation and the greed. Carter had the authority and the access. They decided it'd be like taking candy from a baby.
When people start getting overconfident, they also start getting cocky and start overlooking certain details. And these are the things now that start getting them in real trouble.
A daring plan soon emerges.
So they figured back to school sales. In addition to that, in Texas, we have a tax holiday. Because you don't have to pay taxes, people go shopping more. So they figured that'd be the perfect time to access the safe and make a big score.
To put their plot in motion, Carter schedules herself to close that night.
Because she wanted to be able to leave the door open so that David could slide right on in later, go to the safe, and take the money.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
When the event arrives, things are business as usual until it's time to secure the building.
She did her normal closing duties, counted the money, made sure the store was in order. But this time, instead of locking the back door, she purposely left it unlocked.
While she's safely at home, it's believed that David, dressed in black and with his face hidden behind a mask, does his part.
David just walks right in, no problem, and he goes right to the safe, he takes the money out, and he leaves. Easy peasy.
After the deed is done, the couple reunites at their apartment to examine their payout.
The two are excited as they count the money. David had swiped almost $18,000.
They couldn't believe how easy it had been. They couldn't believe how they were able to get all this money in just one night. And so they started thinking, man, we're onto something.
Fort Worth, Texas assistant manager Carter Cervantes and her man, David Mallory, are alleged to have pulled off a heist at the clothing store they both work for, seemingly without a hitch.
Once they counted the money and they saw how much they had, they just realized that it was so easy for them to get it. And so this kind of got their wheels turning for what they could do in the future.
They walk away with a whopping $17,850 in cash.
They couldn't believe one night, $18,000. It definitely whet their appetite for future bigger thefts.
So when someone gets away with committing a crime, they may delude themselves into thinking they can do it again because there is little to no punishment coming their way.
But the pair has no idea their fortune is about to run out when their crime is discovered.
So the next morning, the morning manager walks in, everything looks normal. But when she gets to the office, she knows immediately something is wrong.
31-year-old Ashley Harris is shocked to see the safe door open with nothing inside.
She was beside herself. She realized that there was almost $18,000 missing.
When Ashley realized that this money was missing, the first thing she did was check the surveillance cameras.
What she saw was that a man, dressed in a black hoodie, covering part of his face, walked directly into the store using the back door that was unlocked, directly to the safe, took the cash, and departed.
What catches her eye is that whoever this was walked right in the back door, so the back door was unlocked.
Her gut tells her who's responsible.
She knew that Carter had closed the store the night before, and she put two and two together and came to the conclusion in her mind that it was Carter and David that had something to do with it.
I've got bad news.
She immediately alerts her supervisor about the theft and her suspicions.
Ashley and the store manager both watched the surveillance camera together, and they both decided that they believed it was actually David in the footage. They started an internal investigation, and they called Carter in for questioning.
The model employee comes in voluntarily and calmly answers their questions.
No, not really.
Carter decides to tell her boss that she knew nothing about what had occurred and that there was a possibility that the only wrong thing that she had done was leave, maybe, possibly, the back door unlocked.
She didn't really see what the big deal was because she believed that insurance would cover the missing money.
Her nonchalance stuns her boss and fellow assistant manager.
The store manager decided to send Carter home, suspending her basically, and they called in the police.
When someone is confronted by something they've done wrong, they can feel cornered. They'll do anything to save their own skin.
As the investigation intensifies, they are both terminated.
They say this is all too circumstantial. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Their antennas were up. So now both David and Carter are fired from the store.
The couple is outraged with the turn of events, and their rage boils over as their ill-gotten gains dwindle.
Instead of being remorseful, they are angry and vengeful.
And now they were trying to figure out where they were going to get more money from because they didn't have jobs now.
With no employment prospects, the couple has plenty of time to think about the future.
Instead of just laying low, maybe leave town, put some distance between themselves and this crime that has occurred, in which a lot of people suspect them. No, they decide they're going to hit the store on Black Friday, when even more money will be in that safe.
They know that they have the opportunity to make much more, almost $50,000.
When someone is presented with the opportunity of making money, they'll take major risks. It's almost like gambling. They'll do anything to bet and make that huge money, despite the fact that they may end up losing it all just on the roll of the dice.
And they think to themselves, why stop there?
With the big plan in place, they still believe that there's some unfinished business.
The woman they hold responsible for their problems, assistant manager Ashley Harris, holds the keys to the store and to something else.
They both are on board with getting revenge.
The plan was they were going to go over to Ashley's apartment and break in early in the morning, They wanted to kill her, take her manager keys, go back to the mall later that evening, and take the money.
When someone is so stuck on this idea of hate, they think about and obsess about how much they despise someone. Eventually, those thoughts can turn to anger, rage, and violence against that other person.
In the pre-dawn hours of Black Friday, the couple drives over to Ashley's apartment in Fort Worth, ready for vengeance.
Carter and David pulled up in her black sedan, and they ended up picking the lock to break into Ashley's apartment.
And find Ashley in her bedroom. Ashley was shocked to see them both, what soon to turn into terror when she realized that they were there to hurt her.
Immediately, David and Carter start attacking Ashley. I mean, they don't waste any time. They tie her up, they bind her with duct tape, her hands, her feet. There is a big struggle that happens. She starts fighting for her life, and she won't stop. I think they may have been a little surprised at how ferociously she fought back.
David reacts by pulling out a 9mm.
Cervantes and her man, David Mallory, are enacting a revenge murder robbery scheme on former co-worker Ashley Harris.
Carter and David grabbed Ashley. There was a struggle. They tied her hands behind her back. They duct taped her ankles together. Let me go! She was fighting and screaming and trying to get away. David reacts by pulling out a gun and hitting her over the head with it several times.
Ashley Harris fights for her life after David pistol whips her, so they do the unthinkable to silence her.
They just grabbed her around the throat, and they would not let go until she was no longer breathing. And then she was dead.
The pair is shocked at how long it took to kill Ashley, and they realize they don't have enough time to transport the body without being seen before the sun comes up, so they have to think fast.
They grabbed a bottle of rubbing alcohol from Ashley's bathroom. They poured it on her body and around her and set her body on fire.
As Carter is standing there, just kind of transfixed, watching Ashley's body burn, David had to snap her to. And then they grabbed those keys to the store and they got out of there.
Someone who got themselves in this mess may start wondering how they got there in the first place, but one thing they do know is that they may be beyond the point of no return.
They head back to their apartment and count the hours until the next phase of the plan. But as the couple lays low, they are oblivious to the fact that Ashley's downstairs neighbor has already called 911.
He had heard some screaming and a large thump. And then his carbon monoxide detector had gone off, and there was leaking from the sprinkler system above into his apartment.
When firefighters respond to the scene and put out the fire, they make the gruesome discovery.
Once they saw that clearly this was some kind of homicide scene, they started talking to neighbors, and neighbors said, yeah, they heard noises, they heard a scream.
It woke me out of my sleep.
A neighbor ended up telling police that they saw a black sedan that normally isn't in the complex leaving earlier that morning.
Across town, when Ashley fails to show up to work and is not responding to calls or texts, a co-worker stops by her place and comes upon the chaotic scene.
Ashley's store manager shows up and tells police that, interestingly enough, he has a former employee named Carter who drives a black sedan.
He also tells them about the store robbery back in August and how Carter and her boyfriend are their main suspects. Based on what's been taken from Ashley's apartment, police suspect the couple might be up to their old tricks.
Her wallet was left there, her purse was there, all kinds of other valuables were left in the apartment. The only thing missing were the keys to the store.
The store manager rushes off to change the locks on the store, while police plan their next move. Across town, Carter and David haven't given up on their current robbery scheme and head out to the mall.
David drops Carter off and she walks into the mall. He drives away to another location.
Carter makes a beeline straight to her old store. She tries the keys they took from Ashley, and to her surprise, the locks have been changed.
Carter realizes that the jig is up and somehow somebody knows she has these keys, so she runs away.
Carter flees to the one place she believes that she will be safe, home.
When someone realizes that their plan has been foiled and they're out of options, that has to be incredibly nerve-wracking for them.
Hot on their trail, Detectives arrive at the shopping center and split up to try to locate the pair.
One goes inside the mall looking for Carter, and the other finds David standing by his car at the other end of the parking lot.
While the detective outside is able to take David into custody, an officer inside hits a dead end. His accomplice is nowhere to be found, so investigators decide to stake out the couple's apartment.
Now, Carter had walked home from the mall. Detectives end up finding Carter kind of hanging out at her complex. She willingly goes downtown with them.
During questioning, Carter denies any involvement in the crime.
Didn't do anything.
She's sticking with her story and she's sticking by her man.
So police have Carter in one room, spinning lies a mile long. They have David in another room, telling his own version of events. Their stories completely contradict each other, but authorities can't hold them. They don't have something to hold them on, so they let them go.
After their release, things between them turn sour as they start doubting one another. So they split up and go their separate ways.
A he said, she said situation for a couple who are facing criminal charges, well, that can be so stressful that the relationship can begin to implode.
The very next day, a surveillance video and a search warrant for the black sedan are their undoing.
When detectives searched Carter's car, they found a gun, ammunition, ski mask, and they even found a guide to lockpicking.
So now detectives have two key things to solidify this case. They have the things they found in the car, and they have the surveillance video of Carter in that mall trying to open the gate where she used to work with Ashley's keys.
6 days after the murder, David is arrested in Amarillo at a friend's house. Carter is arrested the next day in Fort Worth without incident. They are both charged with capital murder and theft. And that's where their love and loyalty ends. They each point the finger at the other for the heinous crimes.
And just like that, certain people turn on one another when it's time to save their own skins from a life in prison. Never mind the love they shared, the promises of a future together, it seems like that never existed to begin with.
Clarence David Mallory is convicted on capital murder charges and is sentenced to life in prison without parole. Carol Carter Cervantes is also convicted on capital murder charges, and she is sentenced to life in prison without parole. Carter put her man before herself, reducing her promising career and her life to ashes.
These lovers got greedy, and it cost them everything.
When he assigns her to his thievish plan, she sees it through to its harrowing end.
His weapon was a gun, mine was only my brain. That's all I had to fight with.
Now I gotta kill you too.
She lost everything that was dear to her and all that made her who she was.
There are hundreds of thousands of...
She wasn't the type of person to go out looking for trouble. I would say Brenda Humphrey was more of a loner. So that left her open to being influenced by many other people and circumstances and whatnot.
She dabbled a little in drugs.
When there's that lack of parental positive influence, kids may be more at risk for acting out. Because after all, they are at an age to act on impulse, and if there's not a parental figure stepping in, they will continue to act out unchecked.
After graduating high school at 18, Brenda moves out of her parents' house and ends up on the streets, crashing in cheap hotels and waiting tables to make ends meet. But the cat-and-mouse game to survive takes its toll.
That's when the downward spiral really began. For Brenda, it was getting involved in prostitution.
She became someone who was frequently arrested and came into contact with law enforcement quite a bit.
She did not know how to break out of the cycle. It not only became a source of fulfillment, but also it became a source of her own detriment.
She couldn't get away from that lifestyle. I think that's the reason why she couldn't stop the cycle, is just because that was a part of who she was.
Regardless of multiple arrests, Brenda continues to sell her body at night and sling hash by day for the next 14 years. She has no shortage of male contact, but it leaves her extremely alone and vulnerable. Her life is in a continuous downward spiral, finding herself in the arms of the wrong type of men.
Brenda's relationship with men was one that left her abused.
She experienced physical abuse. She experienced emotional abuse and verbal abuse. All of these men took advantage of Brenda, and she did not know how to really deal with it.
Women who have been constant victims of physical and verbal abuse in their relationships, certainly their self-esteem most likely has been destroyed. So when they enter subsequent relationships, they may be more at risk to interpret any kind of attention, even negative attention, as being positive.
By the time she turns 34, she seeks some stability in her life. And during her day shift one afternoon, she catches the eye of a new coworker, Gregory Wilson.
He was very different than what she had experienced in her life. This was a man who was tall, dark, handsome, strong, force.
That's the type of man that Brenda thought she needed in her life.
And her fascination with her 30-year-old coworker grows after he confesses his bad boy ways.
Gregory Wilson was a man with a checkered past. He was a violent criminal. Had already served multiple stints in prison. He was, in a word, dangerous.
Living out of a motel, the ex-con takes a restaurant gig in order to save up for a place of his own. Despite his convictions, Brenda's draw to her new coworker intensifies. The two get hot and heavy and spend every waking moment together.
She was under Gregory's spell. She was willing to believe that they did have some sort of future.
When someone has spent the majority of their lives alone, isolated, it's only natural for them to want the attention. So when they end up in a relationship, they'll do anything they can in order to hold on to that relationship, even if it's not a positive relationship.
After only weeks of dating, Brenda puts her night job to bed when she and her lover move in together. The couple now spends their days at the eatery and their nights fantasizing of a better life. That's when Gregory comes up with a sinister proposal that will make all their dreams come true, or at the very least, his own.
Gregory suggests to Brenda that they steal a car.
How about we steal a car?
It didn't shock her, but she was down for it. She definitely wanted to be a part of the scheme.
This was just a car theft. She had lived on the wild side. She had contacts with law enforcement. So this was just moving the peg up a tad.
Women who just go along with what their man tells them to do, even if it's against their own best self-interests, tend to be women perhaps who have been damaged early in life. They'll do anything they can in order to hold on to the love that they're getting from that individual.
The duo head 30 minutes to Covington, a city on the Ohio River in eastern Kentucky, to proceed with their plan. They spend the evening waiting for just the right moment, wandering the streets trying to find a target-rich opportunity.
They went from apartment complex to apartment complex until they found Deborah Pooley. She had just left a friend's house. She was by herself. It was late at night, and it was dark.
The unsuspecting 36-year-old has recently hit a rough patch of her own.
Deborah is from Hamilton, Ohio, just recently returning from Florida where she was in college. She came home to take care of her aging parents.
And just as she parks her car, her night is about to spiral into the abyss.
That's when Gregory and Brenda approached her, asking her if she knew someone in the neighborhood. Gregory quickly put a knife to her throat, forcing her into the back of the car.
Gregory got in the back seat with her, and then Brenda began to drive.
Brenda certainly didn't talk to Gregory about abducting Deborah, but she just did what she had to do because Gregory was in charge of the plan.
People who are in a situation where they're being controlled by someone else, they're operating out of fear. They are scared that the person who may be telling them what to do may hurt them.
The couple heads west towards Indiana while Gregory keeps his terrified hostage quiet in the back seat.
It was just that time that it all kind of struck Brenda that this was going a lot further than she initially anticipated. But she cared about Gregory, and she was going to be there to support him. So she kept driving.
During the late-night drive, things go from bad to worse when Gregory orders Deborah to unbutton her blouse.
Gregory got very impatient. She did not oblige to his instructions because she was afraid. Gregory proceeded to take her clothes off himself, and from that point, he started to rape her right there in the back seat of her own car, while Brenda, his girlfriend, was driving.
Please pull over, please. Help me.
Her home in Covington, Ohio.
She was shaken. She was crying. He ripped her clothes from her and assaults her continually for an hour.
While Gregory forces himself on Deborah, Brenda continues to drive towards the Indiana border.
For Brenda, this man that she thought was the man of her dreams, she must have been glancing in the rearview mirror as she was racing down the road.
People act out of fear, especially when they are involved in a situation where they feel that they have no control.
As Brenda continues to drive, Gregory ends his carnal abuse on Deborah, but the malevolent man is not done with his victim just yet.
Take my money.
He goes through her purse and takes her money and credit cards before pulling a lamp cord out of his pocket and binding her hands together.
No, you've done enough. Haven't you done enough?
Brenda was surprised, but it was clear that this was all planned by Gregory.
As Gregory's actions fully register in her mind, Brenda is even more shocked after he shares his fatal intention with their hostage.
He decided that she couldn't be around anymore because now she has become a witness to what they were doing.
He made it very plain to her that he had no other use for her and she had to die.
Gregory takes the other end of the lamp cord and wraps it around Deborah's neck and begins to strangle her. She struggles to break free of his tightening clutch and gazes towards Brenda, desperately pleading to help save her life.
Shut up!
I believe that Deborah was hoping that Brenda would have empathy, would have compassion. But at this point, I believe Brenda was caught up in the crime. She was all in, and she knew there was no turning back at that point.
Deborah's pleading for her life. Brenda immediately jumps in and tells her, "We have to kill you. You've seen us."
You saw us! You have to! I'm sorry!
Hearing his girlfriend is on board with the plan, Gregory continues to pull the cord until she has no fight left in her.
There was nothing that she could do with no one there to save her.
And just before they crossed the Indiana state line, Deborah Pooley was dead.
As Brenda continues to drive through the night, Gregory tells her to pull over in Hendricks County, Indiana.
Pull over.
They found a secluded place in the woods, and together they disposed of Deborah's body.
After they buried the body, Gregory and Brenda decided to go and find a place to sleep. It was about 4 a.m. the next morning, so they decided to go to a local motel to get some rest and plan their next move.
The following day, while Brenda and Gregory sleep, Deborah Pooley's mom learns that Deborah never showed up for work that morning.
She knew that something had to be wrong, that this was not a part of Deborah's normal behavior.
Fearing the worst, Deborah's mom calls the police to report her daughter missing. Meanwhile, Brenda and Gregory have finally risen from their slumber and go on a shopping spree using Deborah's credit cards.
They purchase shoes, jewelry, some cosmetic items, clothing.
They spent over $200. They just had a ball, all on the dime of Deborah Pooley.
After their big splurge, the duo makes their way east in Deborah's car.
They knew that they could not keep the car because that was the evidence that would incriminate them. So they drove 3 hours back to Independence, Kentucky, to Brenda's hometown. They knew exactly where to take the car and to leave it so there won't be any evidence of the crime.
They tried covering over the physical evidence with motor oil and bleach.
Once they dump the vehicle, the two grab a bus toward Covington. But along the way, Brenda's feeling nostalgic and asks if they can stop in on her childhood pal, Audrey Waterford.
Audrey is Brenda's best friend, someone who Brenda trusted, someone she really cared for.
Brenda and Gregory arrived at Audrey's home, and the couple had told Audrey that they'd been camping. but they showed up with these bags of clothes and jewelry. Audrey was shocked and found it strange.
Even though she's suspicious, Audrey keeps her thoughts on the down low and enjoys the time spent catching up with her long-lost girlfriend and her man before they have to go back home. A week later, Audrey gets another unexpected visit from her closest friend, but this time she's solo, and the surprise is only eclipsed by what she reveals next.
Brenda confided in her best friend. Brenda comes clean with Audrey. She told her the details of the attack, of the assault, where all of the jewelry, the clothes, the items came from.
I think Brenda at this point was just feeling so guilty that the weight of what they had done had really played on her mind, her heart, and her spirit, that she could not carry the guilt and the burden of this by herself, that she had to let someone know.
When people are involved in a crime or illegal action, they may feel some amount of guilt, and therefore they may use the defense mechanism that we call undoing. In other words, doing something that is the opposite of what they've done, in order to make themselves feel better, try to correct the situation in some particular way.
Audrey is shocked that her friend participated in a heinous crime, but promises Brenda that she will keep her secret.
She knew that Brenda trusted her, but with the information that Brenda gave her, she knew she had to do something. She couldn't take a chance that there would be another innocent victim that would fall to this kind of horrible act.
After confiding in her gal pal, Brenda heads back to Covington and Gregory's loving arms. A week later, Audrey crumbles under the weight of Brenda's horrific secret.
She had to do something. It was too much for her to bear.
If she could do it to Deborah Pulley, who's to say they couldn't do it to Audrey?
And later, there's no second chance for good girl Janae Ingram after she falls under the influence of a relentless crook.
I think Timothy was out for some quick bucks, and she was all game to help him.
If he asked her to run in front of a car, she probably would have done it because he was very manipulative.
Confesses to her best friend Audrey Waterford that she and boyfriend Gregory Wilson raped and killed Deborah Pulley in Kentucky. Audrey's conscience gets the best of her.
Audrey decided that she had to call law enforcement. She couldn't sit on this information.
Secrets do have a way of coming out, something that weighs very heavy on the mind, heart, and soul. Just cannot be at rest in that space. Someone experiencing that has to talk about it or they'll be consumed by it.
Hours later, after tipping off the authorities where to find the body, Hendricks County Sheriff's Department discovers Deborah Pulley's remains in a wooded thicket.
So when the Sheriff's Department of Hendricks County were summoned out to that wooded rural area where they disposed of Deborah Pulley's body, the body was badly decomposed. It had sat in elements for 2 weeks, and it was very hard to identify whose body that was because of the very horrific manner in which that body was disposed.
Due to Audrey's bravery in coming forth, investigators are able to track Deborah's killers down at their seedy inn.
The investigators were led to the hotel in which Gregory and Brenda were arrested. Inside the hotel, they found credit cards, they found bags, they found merchandise that had been purchased on Deborah Pulley's credit card. They found just a treasure trove of evidence.
Police also locate Deborah's car where her abductors dumped it in Independence, Kentucky.
That car contained evidence with both Gregory's hair and DNA samples.
The couple is taken down to the station where they are both charged with first-degree robbery, abduction, rape, conspiracy, and murder. And since Brenda has multiple felony convictions from past prostitution events, she is also charged with persistent felony specification. During her interrogation, she is blindsided and learns that Gregory told investigators that she is the one who killed Deborah Pulley.
He asked me if I...
Once Brenda found out that Gregory had threw her under the bus, then she confessed. She told the authorities everything about how everything went down and all the details. She gave all of the details about the murder.
When someone has been involved in a crime and it wasn't totally their idea, it just makes it so much easier for them that when the law comes down, it's every man or woman for him or herself, and therefore they're looking out for their own skin.
And while Gregory continues to point the finger at his lady love on the outside, his arrogance buries him on the inside.
Gregory ended up confessing, but it wasn't to the authorities, it was to his cellmate. Gregory had this view that he was the mastermind behind this whole murder, and that he had gotten away with it.
He was so confident in his dominance, going as far as to say that he should have gotten rid of both Brenda and Deborah. But it was that cellmate who recounted everything to authorities that led to this conviction.
A year later, during her trial, Brenda Humphrey is found guilty to all the charges against her and is sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. As for Gregory Wilson, he pleads not guilty in court, but with the help of Brenda and his cellmate's testimony, a jury finds him guilty of all charges. He is sentenced to death for kidnapping and murder. He is also given 20 years for first-degree rape, 20 years for first-degree robbery, and 10 years for criminal conspiracy to commit robbery. In the end, Brenda Humphrey's rough past and the abuse she endured has left her vulnerable to negative influences in her life.
Brenda was targeted by Gregory Wilson. Her nature was destroyed, devastated.
Women have to understand that they're valuable, that they don't have to be followers, that they can emerge from a very manipulative person and make their own decisions. Because if Brenda was able to do that at that time, she may not be sitting in prison as long as she has.
When people are doing things out of fear, it means that they're not doing it in their own self-interest or of their own free will, and that, my friends, is a recipe for disaster.
Brenda Humphrey's guilty conscience overpowers her devotion to her man. And in Lancaster, California, Janae Ingram gets burned when she falls into the arms of a man with a blistering secret. California-born Janae Ingram has a personality to match her sunshine roots.
Her family and friends really love her because she's always in a great mood. She's always the life of the party, just a happy spirit.
She was the type of person that always had a smile on her face, and she's very lovable, very caring. She's just incredible to me.
The 23-year-old lives at home with her parents, who are in no rush to see her go.
Janae's parents are great people. They raised her the way that she was supposed to be raised, and they're very loving.
The adored daughter has dreams of following in her father's footsteps one day, by getting a job as a nurse in the hospital where he works.
I believe she would have been perfect for it because of her caring personality.
She was a good kid who had her whole life in front of her.
And she never wants for great company until she starts dating her next-door neighbor, 22-year-old Dante Webb.
I wish I could cuss on TV. He was a jerk, and he would put her down a lot. He would talk about her weight.
How about you go to the gym?
It really messed her up to the point where she wasn't the same person that the family knew.
It was horrible. From seeing her being very happy and bubbly to her barely coming out of her room, staying there with him, it was just a whole different Janae that I didn't like.
When someone is young, innocent, inexperienced, that can put them at risk for entering into an unhealthy relationship. And if it's a first boyfriend, well, they may not know what's normal or abnormal in a relationship.
After several unhappy months, Dante wears out his welcome in Janae's life. But the effects he has on the once bubbly young woman are everlasting.
After the relationship, she wasn't as happy anymore. She wanted to stay in her room a lot, and she just slowly started pushing herself away from family. we would rarely see her.
Over the next year, Janae reconnects with loved ones while keeping a safe distance from men.
She didn't date anybody at all. She felt unworthy. She was very vulnerable. And she was heartbroken, and she was just miserable, pretty much.
When someone gets their heart broken in a relationship, it can really lead to not just dysphoria, but a real depression.
But Janae's young heart proves its resilience when she meets 23-year-old Timothy Johnson.
He had an edge about him that she really liked.
I would say Janae was attracted to him because of the way he talked.
Before they knew it, they were boyfriend, girlfriend, and time passes and they really were enjoying each other. They were each other's boo.
The 24-year-old is undeniably smitten, but there's more to her new boyfriend than meets the eye.
He had been convicted of marijuana sales. He'd actually been to prison for robbery already. And by the time they had met, he'd just gotten out of prison.
He lived with his mom. He had no ambition, no dreams, no goals. He is a lowlife.
And the family noticed that, and they didn't particularly care for him.
Timothy showers her with attention. And in return, Janae will do whatever it takes to keep him hooked.
Janae got in the habit of doing him favors all the time. Giving him rides, taking him here, there. If he needed money, she would probably even give it to him.
But her fiery passion to please him leads to an unexpected showdown where her flame burns her like never with her new flame, Timothy Johnson, despite her loved one's disapproval.
She started distancing herself again. She wasn't coming around. She wasn't going to family events.
Hurry up! Now! When someone enters a relationship that may not be healthy, they think by showing that individual kindness and showing them love that they can eventually change them into a healthier person and have a healthier relationship.
But 3 months after the lovers meet, it's clear that though her boyfriend served his jail time, the demons are still hissing in his ear.
They're hanging out at Timothy's mother's house, and Timothy says, you know what?
We gotta hit this lick.
Which means I want to do a robbery.
He says he's itching to steal laptops from a computer store at a strip mall, and he wants Janae to be the getaway driver.
Get in your car.
I don't think Janae would have understood hit a lick. She probably would have been questioning him, like, what does that mean? She was never a bad person. She never got in trouble by the law. She never did anything bad.
But any lingering doubts are restrained when she agrees to use her own car to get the job done. On a hot, late afternoon, Janae helps bring her boyfriend's sinister plan to life.
Timothy brought a ski mask and a gun, a rolling suitcase and a backpack, all for the purpose of going in and robbing the store.
I believe she was terrified, and she didn't know how to get out of it.
When you engage in a behavior that is very negative at the suggestion or manipulation of someone else, something else is going on in your own psyche or mind.
Timothy directs her to park at a nearby cluster of stores where he commands her to sit tight until he returns. Janae watches as her boyfriend quickly disappears into the bustling shopping center. Inside the tech shop, the owner, 59-year-old beloved husband and father Reed Keith, is going about his day with his friend John Kimmons.
Reed was a very nice guy. He was always willing to take the time to help somebody find a problem and say, oh, it was minor, come back, and when you have something major, then I'll charge you. I was holding the chip on the board while he was going to solder the chip in place, and I was holding it. I saw Timothy walk by from right to left.
Suddenly, scheming turns into action.
He pulls the ski mask down over his face and pulls his gun out, walks into the store and declares that this is a robbery.
Get on the floor!
From that point on, it became a totally defensive game on my part. I dropped my head so I would not look him in the eyes, and I got down on the floor. Reed didn't get down on the floor.
Get over here! What is it you want?
Reed wasn't of that mindset. I think he felt like he could talk Timothy off the ledge.
Tell me what it is you came here to get.
I think the guy just angered him. I don't think he was ready to be robbed. He wasn't willing to comply with this young kid's orders.
As the two argue, John takes the opportunity to crawl as far away from the gunman as possible.
As I was doing that, he fired a shot.
I bet you didn't think I was gonna shoot you, did you?
And so that led me to believe that he shot him.
John keeps his head down as the gunman coldly shoots Reed 2 more times, in the chest and head.
He now turned his attention to me and told me to come up front. And so I did. And then he said, get on the floor. And he waved the gun right at the spot Reed was in. So I had to lay down right next to Reed. And in going down to the floor, I had to look into his eyes. And he was still breathing, but I could see that the life was ebbing out. Seeing his eyes in my mind is the hardest part.
As Reed's life comes to an end, John is now alone with the killer, and no one is coming to the rescue.
Get out.
He turned to John and told him,
Now I gotta kill you too.
I can't leave a witness.
It was in a perfectly calm and calculated voice. Don't give up, is all I could think. His weapon was a gun, mine was only my brain. That's all I had to fight with.
Janae is sitting in her car waiting for Timothy to come back out without her knowing that inside of the computer repair shop, Timothy has held 2 men hostage and there's been a murder.
Inside, the only witness to the botched robbery begs for dear life.
So I said, no, I haven't looked at you. I can't testify against you. You don't have to.
I didn't see your face. I can't recognize you.
And then he just started asking me questions.
Timothy goes searching for valuables, while John takes the gamble of his life.
I jumped up off the floor, ran for the front door, and burst through it and ran to the restaurant.
As John takes cover calling 911, the gunman zeroes in on what he came for.
He filled up his backpack with computers and told her, just drive, get out of here.
Janae and Timothy, they managed to drive away before cops came.
When you're involved in a very high-stress situation, then many times adrenaline will kick in, and that puts you in fight or flight mode. So you're acting more on impulses than you are on cognition.
But their luck keeps running out when an observant eyewitness gets a make on the getaway car.
He managed to tell the police what kind of car he was in and the license plate.
As the crime scene is processed, John does his best to help detectives with their investigation.
When the police asked me what he was wearing, I could basically say that he had on a dark hoodie. He was pulling down the ski mask, and I was pretty sure he had dark trousers.
Unaware that they've been made, Janae drops her man off at his mom's house. But unbeknownst to her, she's not the only woman who's at her love's beck and call.
So once Timothy is dropped off at his mom's house, he calls his ex-girlfriend, Kenzie. Tells her, come pick me up. And Kenzie obliges him and comes to pick him up.
He selfishly flees 100 miles away to Los Angeles to hide out with his ex, leaving Janae holding the bag. Back near the crime scene as she makes her way home, police pull over the car with the matching plate number, finding Janae driving it. And she proves just how loyal she is to her boyfriend of just 3 months.
They took Janae in for questioning, but she didn't give any information, didn't allude to anything about the robbery.
When a person lies to the police in order to protect their love interest, well, it's very clear that they're putting the interest of that person above their own.
Then, Janae learns the gruesome details of what she helped facilitate just a few hours earlier.
Once they showed her the pictures of Reed being shot, then she actually threw up when she saw those pictures. And she realized that this was not just a robbery.
She's probably very scared. She doesn't know what to do. She's terrified. I would be terrified.
Finally, the accomplice admits it was her boyfriend, Timothy Johnson, she was with. And after police discover his hefty criminal record, detectives are convinced they're on the right track. Then, Janae gets the next shock of her life when police release her.
They weren't going to let her get away. They just wanted her to think she was free so that she would contact Timothy by phone.
So clearly in Janae's world, she was a wreck. She was a wreck. The guy that she thought was her Prince Charming turns out to be a murderer, and she helped him.
The next morning, when Janae hasn't heard from her wanted boyfriend, she calls him. Still in Los Angeles, he answers the phone and assures his dedicated girl that he's got a plan. But it's about to fold.
They followed the ping of the phone, and they watched him leave the apartment, and I think they surrounded him, so they were able to capture him without a battle and no one getting hurt.
That same day, Timothy Johnson is arrested and charged with murder and armed robbery. But Janae's role in the story is just beginning, when the guy she would once do anything for now expects her to take the fall.
Timothy told a completely different version of events than the one that Janae had mentioned.
He messed with her head, and she was just very vulnerable to Timothy, and he took advantage of that.
After using her own car to be her boyfriend's getaway driver in a robbery turned murder, Janae Ingram still has her freedom as her man faces the consequences.
He pleads not guilty to all of the allegations, and he wants to set the matter for trial.
Immediately after talking to his lawyer, Timothy doesn't hesitate to point the finger at his girlfriend.
Timothy tries to blame Janae for the crime. He says that she told him to go steal these computers from this computer repair store and bring them back to her dad's.
3 days after the deadly crime, Janae Ingram is also arrested and charged with the murder of Reed Keith.
Her mindset was blown. She'd never been in trouble before. She finally had trusted someone, and her trust had been betrayed yet again.
Oftentimes, when we're under that spell of love, we engage in horrific, crazy, law-breaking behaviors, things that we never would do for ourselves, but we do for the love of a woman or a man.
Facing a life sentence, her family's worst fear about her boyfriend of just a few months comes to life.
It's a tragedy because it was such an amazing person that got manipulated by some jerk, some ex-con that ruined a perfectly good person's life.
During her man's trial, Janae severs the tie for good.
Janae had to testify against Timothy. This was the only way that she was going to avoid the potential life sentence. She was an accessory, which made her equally culpable and thus subject to the same sentencing as the original perpetrator.
John testifies in court against Timothy, where he relives the day that changed his life forever.
No one knew that there was a witness. And so this was going to be the first time I would be publicly recognized as a witness. And that was uncomfortable.
In front of the heavy hearts of Reed's family and countless others, Timothy expresses no remorse for his violent death.
Reed had a wife that needed him. He had other family members that loved him. He had lots of friends in the community. You know, we lost somebody good.
Though he's thankful to be alive, the survivor is still picking up the pieces of that tragic afternoon.
I believe I'm different today after what happened. I don't trust people in large settings. I look over my shoulder when I walk into post offices, when I walk into any room. I look for the exit, always thinking that it could happen again.
The jury finds Timothy Johnson guilty of first-degree murder and 2 counts of second-degree robbery. He receives 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole.
I'm glad he's never getting out. He completely ruined our family. Everybody just distanced themselves from everything. And I hate Timothy. I honestly do.
As part of her plea deal, Janae pleads no contest to voluntary manslaughter and is sentenced to 21 years in prison.
My heart dropped. That broke me. I cried for a very long time. She's never had a criminal record, and she just fell into the wrong relationship and got manipulated and verbally abused and emotionally abused.
The unrelenting loyalty the 24-year-old once had to her guy is finally broken. But it's too little, too late.
At the end of the day, as an adult, we all are responsible for our own behavior. And she chose to do what she...
Falling in love can feel like diving headfirst into water. The plunge is exhilarating. The rush overwhelms you. Nothing else matters. But if you're not careful, you can get caught up in the current. Soon you don't know which way is up. You struggle for air and fight like hell until your very last breath. Snakes its way into the salty brine of the Gulf of Mexico, where boats and barges begin their journey to busy ports. This intracoastal waterway often looks calm, peaceful, but looks can be deceiving.
The call to 911 came in from a man who was using the intercoastal.
New Orleans Police Operator 227, where is the emergency?
Yes, I was headed westbound to the intercoastal waterway. I'm on the boat, or somebody that's dead person in the water. They floating face down.
Are you gonna be there?
Yes, I'm standing up looking at it here.
The New Orleans Police Department responds to the call.
When I arrived, I couldn't get any notion of how the body died. My initial thought was it could be a natural or it could have been a suicide. We rolled it and we were able to determine it was a female.
One clue immediately reveals to police a sinister story.
She was bound. We found some blue rope wrapped around her ankles, and it was frayed off, like there was some kind of object next to it.
But who is this woman, and who would want her dead?
It was absolutely atrocious. So you have to think that this is some form of retaliation. We don't know the depth of what's actually going on.
This scene was challenging. I had no idea who my victim was. I don't know where the body went in the water at. I didn't even know the manner of death, but I felt like I was definitely working a homicide.
Though police have little to go on, news of the unidentified woman's death ripples throughout the Crescent City and beyond.
Even in a city like New Orleans, where there's a lot of killings and a lot of murders, this one stood out for the gruesome nature.
About 70 miles northwest of New Orleans is St. Gabriel, Louisiana. The small town is home to local beauty, Brittany Martin.
Brittany Martin was very outgoing, did well in school. Then after graduation, she attempted to receive a higher education degree. But by the time she enrolled in Delgado Community College, she was pregnant.
The baby derailed some of her education plans.
With her baby's father no longer in the picture, Brittany took the role of single mom in stride, working temp jobs to make ends meet. But Brittany craved something more stable.
Brittany Martin, at age 21, started working as a prison guard.
Being a corrections officer presented to her financial stability, which she needed at that time because she now had a child to raise.
Brittany's primary duty was inmate supervision.
She was actually responsible for monitoring the interactions of the inmates, make sure that they were following protocol, that it was a calm environment, there was no inappropriate activities going on.
Though the job gave Brittany a regular paycheck, it also presented a slew of unexpected challenges.
Brittany is very, very attractive. She has those features that would draw a man's attention to her.
To be a 21-year-old prison guard, a woman in an institution filled with men, she's the center of attention, obviously, for lots and lots of inmates.
There was sexual harassment and the psychological distress from having to be in that working environment on a day-to-day basis.
However, there was one inmate, a man named Horatio Johnson, who went out of his way to make sure Brittany felt safe.
Horatio was serving a sentence but was held in very high regard, and so he was also a protective barrier for her against any of the other inmates. She was not getting the cat calls, the threats.
He was very smart. He was a very good-looking individual. He's very charismatic.
He didn't come off as your average criminal or what we want to think about as your average criminal.
But underneath Horatio's charm was a man with a vicious criminal history.
He had gone to prison for manslaughter. The facts of that case are disturbing.
Horatio waited for somebody to come in the area, and he just jumped out, shot him in the face with a shotgun.
Despite Horatio's history of violence, Brittany soon developed feelings for him.
Small talk develops into conversation. You're getting to know them, they're getting to know you, and then the longer you're there, the stronger those bonds become. It makes you feel good, and it makes you want to like them back.
Eventually, prison officials caught on that there was something going on with the two of them, that there was an illicit relationship taking place.
They found letters and pictures in Mr. Johnson's possession from her to him. And she was given the opportunity to resign without having to go through administrative process.
Brittany may have quit her job at the prison, but her feelings for Horatio only grew stronger.
Brittany planned her future with him, saw him as the man that she wanted to help raise her son and to have her own family with, and a house and a white picket fence.
She adored him. He made her feel good about herself.
She was in love with Horatio. She was head over heels over this guy.
When Horatio was paroled 4 months later, Brittany was right there waiting for him.
Horatio looks like the kind of kid that you take home to mama.
He was someone who seemed to be well educated, seemed to be very business savvy.
Brittany believed she and Horatio would be together forever. But little did she know, her fairy tale romance wouldn't have a happy ending. March 10th, 2014. New Orleans detectives have recovered the body of a woman from the Intracoastal Waterway.
We didn't know if the victim had been stabbed, shot, strangled. This was the first time I ever dealt with a homicide investigation where the manner of death wasn't shooting or immediately known on scene.
The body had been bound with nylon rope, which appeared to be frayed at the bottom, as if something heavy had been attached and torn loose.
Who is this woman? And how did she end up dead? As they examine the body, detectives come up with their first real break in the case. One that will ultimately reveal just how far Brittany Martin would go to prove her love for Horatio.
While we were inspecting the body, we noted that there was a tattoo on the lower back of the victim. Now I at least had an avenue to go down.
Followed her heart and got swept up in a taboo romance, sacrificing her career as a prison guard in order to be with a handsome inmate named Horatio Johnson.
Brittany was just in love with him. She was willing to sacrifice everything.
Brittany was so in love with Horatio and had planned her future with him.
Once Brittany's man was paroled, the two started a life together in Laplace, Louisiana, just outside New Orleans.
She thought, oh, we were gonna be in love and get married, but there was something that none of us could ever anticipate.
Not far from Laplace, New Orleans detectives are investigating the death of a woman whose submerged body has just been pulled from the Intracoastal Waterway.
It was a very, very gruesome discovery.
Couldn't tell who my victim was. I was overwhelmed, to say the least.
But police catch a break when they examine the body.
We flipped the body, trying to look for any defects or any signs of evidence. We noted a tattoo had some version of the word kin in it.
Detectives suspect the woman may be one half of a local married couple that disappeared 3 weeks earlier.
Kenneth and Lakeitha Joseph were married with no children. They lived in a suburb of New Orleans. They were reported missing on February 19th, 2014.
So I immediately reached out to the investigator that's handling that missing persons investigation. They had confirmed that Lakeitha Joseph, the female of the missing couple, had a lower back tattoo of kin.
Shortly after detectives ID Lakeitha Joseph, the coroner supplies them with the cause of death.
When the pathologist ruled out any signs of strangulation, and there were no bullet wounds or stab wounds, the pathologist ruled it as a homicide by drowning.
That same day, investigators reach out to Lakeitha's family and share the devastating news.
I learned that Lakeitha had once been in the military, but left because she was afraid of water, didn't know how to swim.
A fact which makes Lakeitha's death all the more horrific.
Water is going into your nose, into your lungs. It's absolutely torture. No one should have to die that way.
And neither of Lakeitha's parents can imagine who would have wanted to hurt their beloved daughter.
Kenneth and Lakeitha were close with their loved ones. At no time did Kenneth nor Lakeitha tell their families about any problems or beefs that they were having.
In fact, Lakeitha and Kenneth were inseparable. So where is her other half?
The Josephs were reported missing by family members who became concerned because they had borrowed a van that they had not returned, which was very unusual for them.
Back at the station, detectives turned their attention to the van that Lakeitha and Kenneth borrowed but never returned.
The van pops up in Atlanta at a motel parking lot, and they got with Atlanta police to process this vehicle for blood evidence, DNA, anything they could find.
The van had been cleaned prior to it being discovered, but they noted that a large area of blood, or suspected blood, in the back of the van.
The blood tested out to be a mixture of both Kenneth and Lakeitha, so they knew that the couple had been transported in this van at some point and certainly had been injured.
It's looking more and more like Kenneth Joseph may also be dead.
After this van was recovered, detectives were able to find surveillance video from this motel.
At some point in the video, he sees the van enter the motel parking lot, and a male comes in to check in at the hotel.
Detectives cross-reference the time and date the van entered the parking lot with the hotel's check-in records. One name appears.
I came up with the name Frank Mike Jr. as the person that was driving the van.
They immediately run the name through their system.
Frank Mike had a series of arrests and run-ins. He was actually on probation at the time for drug dealing.
We found out that Frank Mike has a house in New Orleans East.
But before detectives can make contact with Frank Mike Jr., another body is found floating in the intracoastal waterway.
It's a male, it's face down, from the chest to the head, it's floating, and the rest of the body is down, and it seems to have been in the water a mighty long time, so it might be the man that they've been looking for.
I was able to view the body, the body size, and the height and weight and all that seemed similar to Kenneth, so I was fairly confident.
Detectives confirmed the second body is in fact Kenneth Joseph.
Kenneth Joseph's body also was bound with the same blue nylon rope.
But the real mystery is just beginning. And what detectives find tethered to the rope reveals the true nature of the crime.
It was very clearly apparent that there were so many steps that had been taken to conceal the bodies.
But police will soon make another equally shocking discovery. the identity of the killer and the seemingly kind-hearted working mom at the center of it all.
Outside looking in, she does not appear to...
Martin found the man of her dreams in recently paroled felon Horatio Johnson.
Brittany was very, very madly in love with Horatio Johnson.
But the true nature of Brittany and Horatio's romance is about to be revealed, along with the gruesome lengths Brittany was willing to go to in order to prove her love for him. It starts when investigators recover Kenneth Joseph's battered body from the same murky waterway where his wife Lakeitha was found 12 days earlier.
This murder definitely stood out as an unusual kind of story, just for the very brutal nature of the killings, the mystery of what had happened to this couple, who possibly could have done this to them, and why they would do it in this manner.
As they look over the body, police learn why they didn't find Kenneth sooner.
His feet were bound with blue rope, same as Lakeitha, same style, same color, same texture of rope. But his body was tied to a 35-pound kettlebell.
We pretty much ascertained that Lakeitha most likely had one also, and it frayed off in the water. And we pretty much figured those kettlebells used to weigh the bodies down so they would be undiscoverable by police.
It appeared to police that this was a very personalized kind of killing. Both people were still alive when they were actually dumped into the water.
With Kenneth's body now identified, detectives turn their attention to Frank Mike Jr., the man spotted in surveillance footage driving the van that the Josephs borrowed the night they disappeared.
I met with Frank Mike. He had come down on his own accord and agreed to meet with me.
You're doing the right thing by coming to us. I'm telling you that right now.
Frank Mike Jr. is surprisingly open with detectives.
I'm telling you, I went over to cut my bread, and the van was there.
He essentially tells me that he noted there was a van parked in the backyard. He didn't know who the van belonged to, he thought it was strange, but he immediately knew to call his nephew, Stephen Bradley.
Call him, like, what's up with that van, dude? He's like, oh, man, you know, we pulled something off.
Stephen Bradley told Frank Mike we'd pulled off a little move in this van that meant that they'd either robbed somebody or something had happened.
Mike knew his nephew was involved in armed robberies and things of that nature, so he didn't ask any further questions.
Stephen said they had to get rid of this van and get it out of New Orleans.
Frank asked Bradley if he could use the van because he had an upcoming trip to go to Atlanta, and Bradley gave him the okay.
I asked him to use it for the weekend. I always go to Atlanta by Percy's Hands and watches, and I sell the stuff.
Frank Mike Jr. tells detectives that it wasn't until he arrived in Atlanta that he realized the vehicle was related to the disappearance of Kenneth and Lakeitha Joseph.
I was flipping through the news, and this was on, and I was just looking at it. I was like, this can't be.
Frank says at that point, he decided to ditch the van.
That's it with me with the van. I wipe my fingerprints off.
The thing about the van is that the van's got blood all in the van.
Frank Mike claimed that he didn't know anything about there being blood in it.
Even though Frank Mike Jr.'s story doesn't entirely add up, police have another potential suspect to look into: Stephen Bradley.
I'm trying to locate Bradley, and I'm still trying to develop more information to go back at Frank Mike to kind of tear down his interview. So I'm at a standstill in my investigation.
In the meantime, detectives turn to the most disturbing piece of evidence: the kettlebell used to sink Kenneth Joseph's body.
I remember thinking that's going to be the key to this case.
Detectives were able to work backwards from that, basically find out where this particular weight was sold.
I felt like the kettlebell was fairly new and purchased around the time of the murders, so we go start looking at different retail shops in the area.
Investigators speak with store managers in the New Orleans area about their kettlebell stock, looking for a match. And they find one.
The manager runs a little SKU number. Because, yeah, we had a sale short after midnight one night. What was sold? 2 kettlebells, gloves, blue rope. Our hearts like stopped. Like, oh my God, this is it. This is the sale. I'm like, can you get video?
The manager sends over the store's surveillance footage for detectives to view.
Lo and behold, we see a couple, male and female, they're in the self-checkout area, and they're purchasing all these items.
They purchased 2 35-pound kettlebells, 3 pairs of gloves, 2 pairs of men's shoes, 2 men's hoodies, and some cleaner, what we've referred to as the murder kit.
It's a jaw-dropping discovery, but not nearly as shocking as the name on the credit card used to purchase the so-called murder kit.
When they were able to further trace that purchase, it was signed with a credit card belonging to Brittany Martin.
Is Brittany Martin somehow involved in the murders of Kenneth and Lakeitha Joseph? Or has her credit card been stolen? When detectives pull Brittany's ID and take a closer look at the store's surveillance video, the answer becomes plain as day.
Surveillance video captured him walking in. And one of the things that struck me is she's smiling, and the look on her face is just such a look of love and admiration.
Detectives in New Orleans are investigating the murders of husband and wife Kenneth and Lakeitha Joseph. After tracing the purchase of the so-called murder kit, the kettlebells, blue rope, and other supplies to a local retail store, investigators have come across an unlikely new suspect.
When they were able to further trace that purchase, they found it was signed with a credit card belonging to Brittany Martin.
Why would this kind, warm-hearted mom be involved in such a heinous crime?
We do some research. Brittany Martin, she has no history, no criminal history, but this major transgression where she crossed the line and had this inappropriate contact with Horatio Johnson in jail.
Horatio Johnson had a lengthy, violent history.
It appeared that he simply was a bad guy, heinous, evil individual.
Detectives also discover that Horatio has a connection with the male victim.
Horatio Johnson and Kenneth Joseph were cousins.
Had Brittany's love for Horatio compelled her to help him commit not 1, but 2 murders? And what was the motive? On April 9th, detectives bring Brittany into the station for questioning.
I attempted to interview her. I explained to her I felt like she was in grave danger because I knew Horatio Johnson's history, and I knew that if he felt like she stood in his way from freedom or going to jail, that he would kill her too.
So at that point, she shuts them down.
Brittany opens her cell phone, claiming that she needs to speak to her attorney.
You can tell she's actually on the phone with Horatio.
It was pretty obvious that her loyalty really was with Horatio.
Between Brittany's phone call, the credit card purchase, and the surveillance video, police are fairly certain the 2 lovers are involved in the murders. But the evidence is purely circumstantial, and investigators are still unable to tie Brittany or Horatio to the blood-stained van.
Anything I said to her was just going to fall upon deaf ears, so she was free to go.
Once Brittany is released, detectives circle back to the stolen van and Stephen Bradley's connection to the case. Detectives eventually locate Stephen and bring him in for questioning.
Once we got to the interview room, he was willing to talk, and Bradley tells us that he knows Horatio Johnson. When was the last time you talked to Horatio?
Man, it's been a minute. Horatio know me from music. My reason for dealing with Horatio is to get heard.
Stephen Bradley was a struggling rapper trying to make it. Horatio was promoting him.
Bradley said that on this particular evening, Bradley was at a recording studio and Horatio showed up with the van.
He was like, man, I need to get rid of this van. So I'm like, man, what's the problem? Yeah, like, man, I just need to get rid of it. I said, don't worry, I got it.
Stephen Bradley tells investigators a man named Blue owned the recording studio, and the 2 of them drove the van to Frank Mike Jr.'s house.
Bradley said they noted what they suspected to be blood in the back of the van.
No, like real talk, like I know they had blood in there.
Was it on the roof, on the walls?
It was on the floor.
Detectives press Bradley for more information, but that's all he's willing to say.
I feel like he knew more about the bodies, but as the interview progressed, Bradley shut down. He wanted to speak with his attorney prior to giving up any more information. So at that point, I had to terminate the interview.
Investigators are getting closer to solving this mystery, but they still don't understand how or why someone like Brittany Martin would be involved in a crime like this. Nor do they have enough evidence to make an arrest. That is, until an associate of Stephen Bradley's comes forward.
He tells me that he had a direct conversation with Bradley. Bradley more or less confessed.
Yeah, he said, I need to get this off my chest. And then he started telling me what happened. And I was like, I kept saying, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
According to the witness, Stephen said he was hanging out with Blue at the studio when Kenneth Joseph entered, accompanied by his cousin, Horatio.
He said that Horatio hit Kenneth with a chair, then placed the chair on top of Kenneth's throat, and then stood on the chair and then jumped onto his body.
He said, we were just kind of standing there like Horatio was just, he was like an animal.
No reason was ever given. Bradley never said that they were asking him questions or yelling at them for any particular reason to give up information.
To know that you're dying at the hands of someone that you share blood with, I can't imagine that.
Investigators don't need a clear motive for an arrest warrant. They just need evidence. And thanks to the witness's statement, now they've got it.
At this point in the investigation, I elected to apply for an arrest warrant for...
Investigators believe 25-year-old Brittany Martin and her boyfriend Horatio Johnson are responsible for the murders of Kenneth and Lakeitha Joseph.
From the store video overhead camera, you could see Horatio Johnson handling the kettlebell weights using the sleeve of his sweatshirt. He was being very careful not to leave any fingerprints even during the purchase, which looked very, very suspicious.
The receipt had been signed by Brittany Martin, who used her credit card.
Miss Martin's walking through the store as if it's another day. She looks like she's the happiest woman in the world.
I believe that she probably had a series of emotions while in that relationship with him. A part of her was afraid of him, but I think a part of it was she loved him. She was willing to do anything for him. He made her feel good about herself.
On May 6th, 2014, nearly 2 months after the deaths of Kenneth and Lakeitha Joseph, police obtain arrest warrants for both Brittany and Horatio.
Once the arrest warrants were signed, Horatio and Brittany turned themselves in.
But even after turning themselves in, neither Brittany nor Horatio will speak to police.
Horatio, please don't make this more difficult than what it needs to be.
All right, so don't try to force me.
Can you call my son? Appreciate it.
Investigators allow the couple to reach out to their attorneys, but not before they collect their cell phones as evidence.
When you get into someone's phone, you get some deep details about what they're thinking. When I start seeing, months after the actual killings, messages of "I love you," "I can't wait to see you," things of that nature, I knew that Brittany Martin is going to be a difficult person. And everyone always thinks, go to the woman, she'll break first, but Brittany wasn't doing that.
With Brittany refusing to turn on Horatio, detectives decide to search the recording studio where Kenneth Joseph was allegedly attacked.
Unfortunately, when we went inside, the whole place had been remodeled.
Everything was cleaned up. There's no way this is a coincidence. So nothing was found in the studio that could further corroborate that story that something happened there.
Detectives attempt to find the studio's owner, the man known as Blue.
We had an arrest warrant for him, but we can't seem to find him. By all accounts, he left the country.
With Blue in the wind, detectives obtain an arrest warrant for Stephen Bradley. But like Brittany, Stephen refuses to play ball.
He said, I want to be able to go into jail holding my head high. I'm not a rat. He refused to speak.
I'm done talking, man. I'm done talking.
Police arrest Frank Mike Jr., who also stonewalls them.
Nobody was talking to the police. Not one person. Not Brittany, not Frank, not Stephen Bradley, not Horatio Johnson.
We knew we had a very difficult case. In order to be able to piece together what happened and be able to prove our case beyond a reasonable doubt, we needed somebody from the inside.
That's when detectives come up with a plan they hope will turn Brittany Martin's undying loyalty to Horatio Johnson on its head. It involves Horatio's uncle, who lives in Texas, and a visit Horatio and Brittany paid him shortly after Horatio was paroled.
Horatio introduced him to Brittany, stating, "This is the girl I love, this is the girl I'm going to marry."
When she walks off and is out of earshot, Horatio says, "Man, I don't love that girl. That girl's stupid. That girl's gullible. I'm just using her. I'll never marry her."
The prosecution provides a copy of the uncle's statement to Brittany's defense attorney.
At this point, she's been arraigned. She's no longer with her son. She's not seeing her mother, and she's still standing by Horatio.
I said, "Brittany, tell me, y'all will get married." She said, "Yeah, Mr. David. As soon as this is all over, he and I are gonna get married. We already talked about it. We might move to Houston."
That's when Brittany's attorney shows her the statement from Horatio's uncle.
So she picks up the report and she starts reading. And I could see her eyes well up with tears. She's about to cry. Then she put the paper down. She said, "He won't play me, huh? Call those people. I won't tell them the real story."
Deaths of Lakeitha and Kenneth Joseph. Hoping she'll turn on her man, the prosecution presents Brittany's attorney with evidence that suggests Horatio may have been playing Brittany all along.
Her eyes got very watery. She was reading the report, and then she put the paper down. She said, "Call those people. I won't tell them the real story."
Just like I suspected, I got a call, and they were ready to talk. We flipped her against essentially the love of her life. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
Brittany finally reveals the events that led to the murders of Kenneth and Lakeitha Joseph.
Brittany got a call from Horatio asking her to come meet him at the studio.
Did he say a reason why to come over there?
No, he just asked me to stop by because I was in the area.
When Brittany pulled up, she found Horatio standing outside with Kenneth. Lakeitha was sitting in the van.
Horatio and Kenneth get ready to head into the studio. Horatio asked me to go and speak with Lakeitha, to go introduce myself to her and talk to her for a while.
Kenneth and Horatio went inside the recording studio. Lakeitha and Brittany stayed outside.
We start to talk about just general things. And Horatio comes back out of the studio. So then he says, "Tell her to come inside."
Brittany says that once she and Lakeitha entered the studio, things took an unexpected turn.
Brittany sees Horatio grab his cousin's wife, put her in a chokehold.
He was choking her, and I started to kind of scream. Then I got out of the studio.
She flees, but she doesn't stop to call 911.
I stopped to cool off and just relax a bit.
She said she received a couple of phone calls from Horatio, like, "Baby, just come back, just come back."
And he was like, "Everything is okay, just come back." And I told him, "No, I'm not coming back." But he kept on like, "Please come back, I want to talk to you. I just need to make sure you're okay, come back."
Horatio told her whatever she needed to hear to make her think it was going to be all right. He smooth talked her and got her to come back.
I pulled up and he asked me if I'm okay.
Brittany says that in the moment, Horatio told her that he loved her, and if she loved him, she'd help him. Desperate to prove her love to Horatio, Brittany obliged.
They go to a major retail store. They're captured on surveillance video.
We see when they're entering into the store, she's staring into his eyes. It's not just simply walking in with us. She's staring up into his eyes longingly.
They purchased what police describe as the murder kit. 2 of these kettlebell weights, the blue nylon rope, gloves that was used in the killing.
Brittany states that she and Horatio then returned to the recording studio. Brittany waited in her car while Horatio went inside.
He stays in there a while, but every now and then he'll come outside and look at the door to make sure I was still outside park waiting, because he told me to sit right here, don't leave.
She sees Horatio, Stephen Bradley, and Blue carrying a large object to the van. And then they go back inside, and then they come out with another large object and put that in the van.
From your vantage point, could you tell me what those items were?
I couldn't see, but I know it was definitely heavy.
Detectives surmised that these objects were the Josephs, who had been beaten unconscious.
They get the bodies from the recording studio. They say, hey, come and get in the car. And Horatio's like, you gotta be stupid, I'm not riding with those bodies.
Brittany claims that at that point, Stephen Bradley and Blue drove away in the van. Horatio got in the car with Brittany and told her to follow them.
Brittany says she follows that van from Metairie into New Orleans, out towards Chalmette. When they pulled up on top of the bridge, Horatio told her to stop the car.
And he got out of the car, went to the edge of the bridge, just over the bridge. He stood there for a while.
Based on Brittany's statement, prosecutors believe Stephen Bradley and Blue dumped the bodies of the Josephs off the bridge while Horatio looked on from a distance.
He's there, but he doesn't dump them. Horatio involves himself just enough and makes other people play a special role.
We had doctors who testified that they died from drowning. So to spend your last moments, your last waking moments underwater, tied up across from somebody that you love, and you can do nothing, that has to be one of the worst ways to die. It is incredibly frightening.
Brittany says that a few minutes later, Horatio got back in the car and they continued driving.
He told me to flick my lights. The van was like waiting for him. The van starts up, they go off first, and I was behind them.
Brittany's statement allows prosecutors to move forward with their case against Horatio Johnson. And on August 22, 2017, his trial gets underway.
Brittany was still in love with this person, but I think she decided to just take a stand against Horatio. And so Ms. Martin testified.
Horatio Johnson was found guilty as charged of second-degree murder. He was ultimately sentenced to a mandatory life sentence plus 60.
Stephen Bradley and his uncle Frank Mike Jr. are both convicted of obstruction of justice.
Stephen Bradley is currently serving a 35-year prison sentence.
Frank Mike received 9 years in Department of Corrections.
The owner of the recording studio, the man known as Blue, remains on the run. There is still a warrant out for his arrest in connection with this case. As for Brittany Martin, in exchange for testifying against her man, she is given a 10-year sentence for obstruction of justice.
I don't think that we could have been successful in this case without her assistance. Brittany was our key witness in this case.
One thing that really never came out in trial was the motive for this killing. How this couple could be murdered in such a brutal way by a cousin, what could have precipitated that?
We heard it was rumored to be about drugs and money.
But prosecutors and police never really were able to uncover any evidence of that.
Though the motive behind the crime may forever be shrouded in mystery, one thing is certain. Brittany Martin's blind devotion to Horatio Johnson cost Kenneth and Lakeitha Joseph their lives.
The only person that could have actually helped didn't, and that was Brittany. How could you watch the man you love do this to someone else? How?
She failed to take some action. She could have called 911, and maybe those two individuals might still be alive. But she didn't. She was bit by the love bug.
She was in love with Horatio Johnson. He had some kind of control over her that made her stay quiet for so long.
Even though her life was changing, that night, it only took for him to look her in the eye and say, baby, it's gonna be all right. And she believed him.